Our guest today is a huge Twitter personality and host on One America News Network, Jack Posobiec. Thank you for coming on to the show.
Hey, really excited to be here, guys. So are you guys based right at Penn State?
Yep. We are right now on the official radio station of Penn State, the Line 90.7 FM.
Well, that's fantastic. Coming from the son of a Penn State grad, my brother also went to Penn State. I myself didn't go, though I will say my dad certainly pushed me to go. And we have been to a lot of the games, but didn't end up going myself. But yeah, I can definitely say we are.
Nice. Thank you for coming on. And I noticed on your Wikipedia page, you said you're from Norristown. That's right near me. I'm from Westchester, PA.
Yeah, that's right. I'm actually originally from Norristown, Pennsylvania. Ended up going to school in Philly before I moved to China, joined the Navy, and eventually found my way to One America.
Awesome. I assume you've been following, to some degree, all this drama that's been happening at Penn State in regard to having Sargon of Akkad and Hunter Avalon here, which we didn't expect it to blow up this big, but it did. What did you think after seeing the aftermath of all this, of all the craziness that's been going on up here at Penn State in relation to bringing these speakers?
Well, so the crazy thing is that Hunter and Sargon, to me, aren't even really all that controversial of guys, right? I mean, they certainly don't follow the line of political correctness or woke culture, but these are two guys that have not really gotten into any, hard line. I mean, they're certainly not racist. They're certainly not violent, anything like that. Like anything that would actually get you in serious trouble. I mean, they just have essentially controversial opinions, whatever that means. And so I was surprised that no matter who you are, right, it doesn't matter if you're on the right or if you're just simply not a member of woke culture. And this is why, to me, woke culture is best understood as a religion, just emblematic of that if you're not part of their religion, you're a heretic and you must be destroyed.
Yeah, it's insane because I thought the exact same thing, that like Sargon of Akkad, he is not controversial at all. There's like two comments he's made that are like a little edgy or a little, you could say maybe, a little over the line if you really want to argue that. But they're building him up to be this like monster. That's why when he came onto the stage, like we play entrance music, and he jokingly said to the car with me that we should play the Imperial March because this guy is like getting hyped up as this emperor of the dark side rather than some just normal British guy, which is what he turned out to be, so it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, and you can tell that no one is actually paying attention to anything that these guys actually do on a regular basis or what they're all about. I was actually just at an event in Philadelphia with both Hunter and Sargon.
Oh, nice.
And I found both of them to be, it was the Tim Pool's Minds event and Subverse. Yeah. And I found both of them to be very interesting, engaging, and I didn't hear anything other than serious discussion of issues of the day from either of them. I mean, this was not, and by the way, this was an audience that wasn't even really quote unquote conservative, right? This was an audience of skeptics, of left wing, people who were not necessarily interested in politics, but were interested in culture and society. And that's what we were talking about. And so it's just funny to go be an event like that where everything is fine and then see Penn State reacting with such vitriol and really looking so ridiculous for taking a couple of the speakers that aren't controversial in the least and acting like they were having the head of the KKK coming to speak. And I mean, that's really how they acted, right?
Yeah.
You'd think that they thought this was some sort of proto-Klan march when it was really just a couple of guys from YouTube.
Yeah.
And that's how you realize that we're actually living through a moral panic right now in America, right? We're living through a moral panic of mass hysteria where people think that there's actually, Russian agents in the White House and there's actually these crypto fascist Klan members. They're at Covington High School in Kentucky, and they're all around you in the shadows. When no, it's actually not like that at all. It's just people who disagree with the status quo, and that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Listen, this event was a really good event. Had a lot of fun. The thing that stuck out to me, right, was like Sargon of Akkad was talking about how conservatives are being censored online, and Hunter was arguing that they weren't necessarily being censored, but there was definitely a liberal bias. What do you think?
So I actually caught that clip because someone sent it to me, and earlier in the week, and they said, what do you think about this? And the way I took Hunter's comments, I thought that what Hunter was talking about wasn't necessarily censorship, but he was because censorship is obvious, right? You can tell that they've been suspended from platforms. Paul Joseph Watson suspended from Instagram and Facebook, right? That's obvious. Like, you can point to these things, right? There are no large mainstream liberals or left-wing people that have been taken down on social media. That's just a fact, right? That's just a fact, right? So censorship, like, it's not even an argument that that's going on. But what you can say, though, and some people say is, well, our traffic has been down. And we think our traffic has been down because we're being shadow banned. Now, that's something that's a little harder to understand, and it's a little harder to quantify, because these guys, these algorithms that YouTube, and these guys are both using YouTube, and others, I know Crowder uses YouTube and has talked about this a lot. I'm not a big YouTuber myself. That they think that because their traffic sees a drop off, or sees sort of like a negative plateau, in the sense where it drops down and then it stays flat, that's some sort of deliberate bias on the part of people at the platform, when it could just be that they've changed the algorithms in different ways. And actually, one of the ways, and Tim Pool does a good job of explaining this, that they change the algorithms, is that they want to promote corporate press over independent content creators.
That's very true.
They want to promote people that spend heavily in terms of advertising dollars on these platforms and promote their content because they have a financial relationship with them. So this is more to do with corporatization than it has, and which is bad, right? Which is definitely bad for YouTube, because YouTube was a platform, I mean, where you could literally be anyone and get big. That's, Justin, I'm not a fan, but Justin Bieber, right, is like the example of this, where here's a guy who is just singing songs in his bedroom and then goes on to become multi-million-dollar star, right? Lindsey Sterling with the dancing and the violins, it's crazy. Like, what is that? But she's amazing. She's fantastic. And nobody would have ever given her a contract if she hadn't blown up on YouTube. So YouTube is a platform that was made because of independent content creators, but because now they're going in and they're demonetizing and they're de-ranking people who don't have those fat corporate advertising budgets behind them. That's why people are actually losing the stream. It's not some kind of because you can see this on the left as well. You can see this with left-wing accounts. They're also losing viewers. It's not because it's not a left-right thing. It's a corporate independent thing.
Huh. Well, actually, yeah, I find that very interesting. That kind of ties into this question that I have with this, with this sort of censorship or pseudo, just kind of dropping, like, shadow banning and whatnot. I know President Trump sent out a tweet on the day of the event saying that universities that don't support free speech will get defunded. What are your thoughts on that? Is that, like, the way forward? Are we going to have to rely on, like, government to kind of step in that respect, to go and ensure that people have the right to go and, like, speak freely on these things? Like, do you think that's going to be the end solution of it?
So I'm definitely someone who considers themselves part of the new right movement, which is sort of like this nationalist conservative movement that's going on here in DC and around the world, really. And so one of our biggest differences from the sort of old school conservatives is that we're not afraid of using government power to secure our rights. That's what the Constitution is there for, right? Our government, our Constitution was consecrated and instituted to protect our rights. This is like Declaration of Independence, Thomas Jefferson 101, right? And if our rights are not being upheld, whether it be on social media or whether it be on a university platform, where especially at a university that's receiving funds from the taxpayers, and obviously I know Penn State receives state funding, they certainly receive federal funding. My own school was Temple University, and so we actually launched lawsuits when I was on campus there back in 2005, 2006, because of bias of our teachers. But we never had this deplatforming issue back then. It wasn't even something that would be considered, because universities used to only uphold freedom of speech. And so this idea that the federal government, what are you going to say? Federal government shouldn't get involved in education? Where have you been the last decade? Right. There's no question the federal government is deeply involved in education. And so, I would be willing to roll forward a robust series of changes from the Department of Education level, saying that if these universities, if these campus administrators are, which are all running money laundering operations with their endowments, that if they're not upholding basic American civil rights like the freedom of speech, that they should stop receiving all federal funding, period.
I definitely agree with that, and I've gone into arguments before with more libertarian types on that particular issue, and it just really annoys me that they would, they'd be fine with the government basically in the universities deplatforming people, and when third party companies too. If I'm being oppressed by a government or if I'm being oppressed by a third party company, it doesn't matter, because I'm still being thrown under the bus in the end of the day.
Yeah, so what they're using is actually, this was the opposition to the Civil Rights Act, right? The Civil Rights Act of 1965, the opposition to that was, they said, well, hold on, the libertarians of the day, they would come around and say, wait a minute, this is a restriction on business, right? And that at that time, of course, the discrimination that was going on was race-based. And so the Civil Rights Act came in and said, you can't discriminate on the basis of race. Essentially, what we would be saying is that you can't discriminate on the basis of political orientation, regardless of what that is. If you want to be a socialist, if you want to be a communist, if you want to be a member of the DSA, if you want to support Tulsi Gabbard or Bernie Sanders, whatever you want to do, right? That shouldn't be cause for deplatforming you, period.
Yeah, that's good. One last thing. So you're from One America News Network, right?
That's right. One America News, watches all the time. OANN.com.
So do you guys are you guys an actual on television news network? Because I thought I could have swore I saw, I don't know if it was One America or there may be another one when I had Verizon, but I had Comcast. I can't even find you guys on there because I was looking before on there.
Yeah, so we are on cable, and that's actually right. We're on Verizon. We're not on Comcast, so we're on Verizon. We're on DirecTV. I believe we're on Dish. And then you can also get us through Apple TV and Google TV and everything else. But Verizon is probably the main one that we're on throughout most of the country.
So do you guys ever plan on going to Comcast at all, or is there some stuff going on behind the scenes where they're are they politically biased, or is it just a money?
Well, we've been requesting to go on Comcast since day one, and not to get too inside baseball, because that's more on the business side of things.
Yeah.
But Comcast is very, very detrimental to independent media. They don't like bringing on people, again, like I was talking about, that aren't part of that sort of corporate family. And so News Corp, Time Warner, that run Fox and CNN, have a lot of corporate shared interests with the Comcast NBC Corporation. So they can do a lot of shared marketing. They can do a lot of rev shares. But for us, just being an independent cable news company, Comcast doesn't see that as something that they want to work with. And so we haven't been able to get on there as of yet, but we're exploring options.
That's a shame.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I hope you guys get more successful, because, the more competitors, the better. Because Fox has really been slipping off. See, ever since the whole downfall a few years ago of all these big names, it's been going downhill. Last thing I will ask, and then we'll close this out, because I know you're a pretty busy man. What do you think of Kanye's new album, Jesus is King? What do you think of this idea of making Christianity cool again? Do you think this will be a successful cultural force?
So I think we're actually at an interesting inflection point in culture right now, because postmodernism has gone so far as to show people that it is completely empty. It's a bottomless pit, right? Postmodernism is a bottomless pit of nothingness, of no moral code. It's based on nothing. It's humanist. It's globalist. I mean, it's global citizens and everyone's the same, and it's nothing. It's a bottomless pit. So what Kanye's doing right now is evoking a return to traditionalism. He's evoking a return to Christ. Now, I'm personally Catholic myself, and so I view this as a major wake-up call, because I think there's a huge yearning out there in society for meaning, for morality, for something beyond this postmodernist nihilism that's really permeated the culture in, I don't know, the last 30, 40, 50 years or so. And so this return to Christianity, you're actually seeing, and even on the Catholic side of things, we're even seeing Catholics having a return to traditionalism. There's even Catholics like Dr. Taylor Marshall now that are advocating for a return to the Latin Mass and Latin prayers. And people are finding so much more meaning in that direct connection to the traditions, that direct connection to the way things used to be set up than ever before.
Awesome. I love your insight on that. I think it's going to be really interesting to see how this album goes, because it's really fascinating to see Kanye. Look, I don't even like rap, but seeing him as a cultural force is fascinating. So fascinating. I love it. Thank you so much for coming on, Mr. Posobiec. Where can people find you?
Pleasure to be on, guys. Thanks so much for having me. Find me on Twitter, Jack Posobiec, Posobiec, and watch me on One American News, and we'll see. Maybe I'll be up there at Penn State sometime.
Ooh, that'd be cool. Well, thank you for coming on. Maybe we'll have you on again next time we have some cool happening news, because your insight's great and you have a Penn State connection. So awesome to have Jack on.